if you would, you can find these notes. Oh, wait a minute, I don't have the notes up, but you should open your Islam classwork, and that is what we're going to go by. We're going to give you the answers to that. And what we're really doing is just basically like basic notes. It's not a whole lot to type. What's happening is a lot of people are Googling the answers, and you're coming up with crazy stuff. Like if you look up the Hagia Sophia today, Hagia Sophia is not a Byzantine church. It is a museum, okay? A lot of things that we talk about have changed over time, so they're not the same thing that we're going to be looking at. So it's in the wrong context. But anyway, let's look at Islam. Islam is always fascinating to me because there's a lot of, I guess, stereotypes with Islam and a lot of misconceptions. Of course, most people think that Muslims are all terrorists and they're all bad people, and Allah is some kind of other God, not, having nothing to do with Christianity or Judaism at all. But when you see the facts about Islam, it really, really is a monotheistic religion. Okay, it has a basis in Judaism and Christianity, even though Muslims don't want to, they don't want to hear that, but reality is that these are all the Abrahamic religions, the monotheistic religions of Abraham. In one of the videos we watched, they talk about how in the Jewish faith, Isaac is the main son, the favorite son of Abraham, while Ishmael is, the main son to the Arabic people or to Muslims. But anyway, what we have to know today. So, all right, origins of Islam. Who is the founder of this religion? It is Muhammad. Muhammad saw an angel who told him to recite. All right, so this is one of your answers right here. It says, who is the founder? You got this up back there, Salvador? Yeah. You should be typing this in for the founder, Muhammad. And then it tells you what are the two most important cities in Islam. The two most important cities are Mecca and Medina, located on the Arabian Peninsula. Muhammad is a very polarizing figure in Islam. I don't know if you guys have, I know y'all don't look at the news or anything, but recently a teacher was talking about an incident where a cartoonists drew the Prophet Muhammad and depicted him married to an 8-year-old, sort of, in a negative way. Muslims don't believe you should be able to view Muhammad, and so they beheaded the teacher that showed this. Okay, so some kind of, I guess what you'd say, this was in France recently. Muhammad is the last prophet to Muslims. Now, when it comes to Jesus and Moses and people like that, what you need, man?
What do we write? So I'm writing who, where, and how.
You're writing, who is the founder of this religion? Muhammad. Two most important cities are Mecca and Medina. Muhammad is best known as the last prophet. He's the main guy. In Islam, Moses and Jesus are prophets, but they are not considered the last seal. So Muhammad is the last, what we call seal. He's the last prophet to Muslims. All right, Medina and Mecca. Mecca is the holiest city. When we look at the 5 pillars, you're going to see Mecca a lot in the 5 pillars. We'll talk about those in a minute. So, Allah. It asks you on here, what type of religion is this? Let me go back real quick. Okay, this is a monotheistic religion, monotheistic faith. Up there it tells you. Monotheistic. So the beliefs, Allah is the Arabic word for God. A lot of times you hear, a lot of Christians, especially country people who don't understand Islam that well, say, I don't believe in Allah, Allah, Muslims believe in Allah, but Allah is just a name for God. It would be like saying, I believe in God, I believe in Allah. It's the same thing. It's no different than, Christians saying they believe in God, or, Jewish people saying they believe in Yahweh. Remember in the Bible, the Old Testament, God is referred to Yahweh several times. So it's not a word that it means anything other than God. It's not a different God. It's still the God of Abraham, the monotheistic God of Abraham. What is their holy book? The Quran. Quran is their holy book. It's spelled Quran or Koran. This is their holy book. And the holy book, the Quran, is very important to Muslims. It's the equivalent of the New Testament and the Bible to Christians, or the Torah to, Jews. Their most important belief system is really difficult. When we watched it, I really watched this video. It's probably not going to be fascinating to you guys, but it's real fascinating to me because it's people your age, kids your age that are Muslims. And the things I find interesting about it is these kids show you the 5 pillars, all of them. And they really show you how do I say it? It's really time consuming, okay? The things you have to do during the day are somewhat tedious in a way. Some of the things I find interesting about the video is the kids apparently go to a Christian school. So when they pray 5 times, they have to pray while they're at school. They go to the chapel. Well, it's a Christian chapel. But, apparently the private school was pretty welcoming of other, type of faiths. So it's interesting to see. But under 5 pillars, you don't have to write all of this stuff. Just write creed. And a creed is a statement of faith. They tell you this in the video. The kid goes, we have to state that there's no other God but Allah, and Muhammad is his messenger. That's the statement they make. Muslims make this statement whenever they usually start their prayer. Okay? They have to pray. This is probably one of the, I guess what you would say, more, really, when you think about Islam, I think about this. Prayer 5 times a day, facing Mecca. It's really important that they face Mecca when they pray. They're praying towards a site called the Kaaba, and they have to have a good sense. They have to use like mathematics to figure out the direction of Mecca. Okay, now they probably got apps and stuff to do that now. I'm sure, which way is Mecca. But when I flew to New York, the last time I went to New York, we flew into LaGuardia. I'd never flown into LaGuardia. I usually fly into Newark, New Jersey, and then my friend picks me up from there because he lives in Homedale. But me and my friend Paul, we flew into LaGuardia, and I remember getting out, and I met my friend there. And when you get out, there's this huge line of like taxi cabs, people trying to pick people up from New York. New York's one of the busiest cities you'll ever see. Most of the taxi drivers, almost 95% to 99%, are Muslims. Why? Well, it's a job that allows you to pray 5 times a day. It's easy for you to go somewhere to pull over to a mosque, or in this case, there's a bridge right across from LaGuardia, and you'll see Muslims roll their mats out. They know which way Mecca is based on, you know, having done the mathematics, and they're sitting there, they know this is the way, because so many of them do it, and they are praying. And of course, my friend was just like, oh my God, why they got to do that there? I'm like, well, man, they're just praying. It'd be no different from you praying somewhere. But he was really offended by it, and I was just like, man, they're just praying. Because people look at Muslims in a different way, you know. We were in the ride, and the guy's name was Muhammad. You know, if you see the name Muhammad, if you look in the phone book and find Muhammad, a lot of Muslims are named after the Prophet. So you find a lot of Muhammads as cab drivers. And my friend is complaining about it when we driving with them, we're riding with a Muslim. I'm like, dude, would you just shut up? Because you're going to offend our driver, and he's going to take us somewhere and drop us off in, you know, somewhere where we'll get killed. But it's always interesting to me, because this is probably one of the most intrusive, you know, if you think about Christianity, Christians don't pray 5 times a day. They don't have to face a certain direction. They usually go to church on Sundays, at the most Sundays and Wednesdays sometimes. And it's not as quite as intrusive as this is. You have to pray sometime during the day while you're at school if you are a Muslim. So when you watch a video, just think about if you were, you know, these kids who are fasting during Ramadan, you know, they don't have money. So when you look at this right here, charity, all right, charity means you give to the poor. But if you don't have money, you have to donate your time, so you have to volunteer. And so they volunteer at a shop where they iron clothes, I think is what the kid says they do. So another big thing, we're going to watch, one of my favorite fighters is Khabib Nurmagomedov. Khabib is from Dagestan, and he's like a great fighter. And the reason I like him, and a lot of people like Conor McGregor. I hate Conor McGregor. Khabib beat him half to death because Conor McGregor insulted the man's father and his religion, you know, him being a Muslim. Many of the women in Muslim culture are forced to wear the hijab or the burqa in some cases. They have to cover their head if it's more moderate, but a lot of the old school Muslims, like Shiite Muslims, the women are covered. And when he got married, his wife was covered because no one else is supposed to be able to look at your wife but you, right? That's the way Muslims look at it. And so, of course, you know, Conor was on there saying, oh, bro, you married a towel or something like that, and running his mouth. And then when Khabib beat him down, you know, he had to eat all those words that he said. Khabib is a real humble guy, a real nice guy. In fact, after he won this last Saturday, he fought on Saturday and dominated, a real good fighter. And he was like, look, my mom wants me to retire because my dad passed away, so I'm done. You know, he's like thankful for my opponent and all the opportunities. And, you know, he's given up literally millions of dollars to retire because his mom wants him to. You know, he's just a good dude. I just like him. So we'll see a video on why he does not fight during the holy month of Ramadan. And then one of the most important things we'll also look at in a video is the Hajj. The Hajj is fascinating to me. It's a real spiritual event for Muslims, and it sort of is it's a game changer. For example, if you remember, I don't know when y'all learned about it, probably in 6th grade, and you probably don't remember any of it, but the civil rights movement, you know, Dr. Martin Luther King, he was the guy most people think about as the leader of the civil rights movement. But there was another guy named Malcolm X who was a Muslim, and Malcolm X was part of a militant group called the Nation of Islam. So Malcolm X goes on the Hajj, which is the pilgrimage to Mecca, and he comes back and he's like, it changes it. He's like, no, I was wrong about this. Islam is for people of all colors. It's the best religion ever, and it's a peaceful religion. And this makes the Nation of Islam mad, and so they assassinate Malcolm X, which is really kind of sad because he wasn't necessarily saying what they were doing was wrong. He was just like, you know, it changed him spiritually. So when you see it, it's a lot, it's ritualistic. You know, they have to go to this building, which is the Kaaba in Saudi Arabia, in Mecca. And they have to circle it 7 times and then sacrifice an animal. They're going to tell you in the video exactly what that entails. Usually it's a lamb or something like that, a sheep, just like Isaac and Ishmael from the ancient biblical sort of story of Abraham. So when you look at this too, I mean, one of the things they're going to tell you in the video is this is dangerous now. Used to be, 100,000 people would go, and then it got to 700,000. Now today, it's around 2 million a year. So this huge tourist attraction, it's like Disney World for, Muslims. They have to go once in their life if they are able. Able means if you got enough money or if you're physically able to take the trip, right? So in general, when you look at that, it's just like a sea of people. My wife would not be good with this. She's she's kind of a germaphobe. And we went to a football game once. She graduated from Carolina, and I don't like Carolina, but she does. But anyway, and Carolina won this big game, and all the students stormed the field. And I said, "You want to go down there?" And she's like, "No, I don't want to be around all those stinky people, BO." I mean, that's a stinky place. Look at all those people. It's hot there, it's sweaty, all of them sweating, stinging. Yeah, that's wild right there. And you see some of the pictures of Islam. There you see, just look at the number of people there. There you see the Kaaba way back in the back of this. It almost looks like a stadium. And they explain some of the things they have to do, like throwing stones at the devil and stuff like that. Also notice this picture down here. These men are prostrating or they're getting ready to pray, and there's no women in there. And the video is good at telling you too, like the men pray, but since the cameras are there, the women pray in another room. So that's always interesting. This is the burqa, the woman you see below here. My cursor's not working, but right there with you can only see her eyes. It kind of covers her whole body. And these, I always think about the Shiite Muslims. We'll talk about them in a minute. But this is, a lot of times you see more moderate Muslims only wear the hijab or they have to cover their head. So here's some things that you don't do during Ramadan. No eating or drinking while fasting. And you'll see how difficult this is. The kids tell you. One of them is like, I really don't like it. I'm always hungry. My mouth is dry. I don't get to drink any water. You lower your gaze. You often are humble during this time. No arguing or fighting. You have to avoid sins. No swearing, lying, or backbiting. I'm not sure what that is. No smoking. Don't waste time on foolishness like video games, computers, cell phones during Ramadan. Do not listen to music during Ramadan. All the things you do, prayer 5 times a day, study and learn Islamic knowledge, recite and learn the Holy Quran, and then you give more charity during this time period. Here you see a young man who is prostrating and praying towards the Kaaba in Mecca. All right, so I am going to put the videos on. I'm going to pause this recording of this session. All right, so those are really good videos. Remember, Mecca and Medina are your most important cities for obvious reasons, Mecca. And of course, whenever I think about Saudi Arabia, it's amazing to me that there's so many Muslim countries in the Middle East and they really all don't get along with each other. That thing with Iran's a little bit different than the other Muslim countries. They really stick up for Syria. Syria and Iran have close ties, and because Saudi Arabia doesn't really get along with the Syrians, then you see what you have as pertaining to that Hajj. If you look up here too, the areas that you see that fall under this, I guess what you would call Muslim empire, you know, Persia is modern day Iran. And the reason those guys in the video, the Saudis called them fire worshiping pagans is because until this time, the main religion of the Persians is Zoroastrianism. Okay, and so now you see a change. Here's where you find Syria. Iraq is right here today, and you can see where Baghdad, Tigris and Euphrates, which is old school Mesopotamia. Here's the location of Mecca and Medina, located on the Arabian Peninsula. All this in purple is becoming Islamic areas. For example, if you think about Egypt today, Egypt is a Muslim country, more moderate. This is Libya, and other North African countries in this area are also Muslim. Spain is going to be a Muslim country for many, many years until the Roman Catholics come in, Ferdinand and Isabella come in and kick out all of the Muslims. And so when you look at that's a good idea of how far Islam is spreading. So the question on your paper, how was Islam spread? Along trade routes from Mecca and Medina. And so look at the areas that it spreads over great distances. It crosses mountains, deserts, into the Fertile Crescent, which is modern day, you know, Iraq, Iran, Central Asia. It moves out into what we consider Middle Eastern countries like Afghanistan and Pakistan. One reason it was able to spread is the weakness of the Byzantine Empire that will eventually fall to Muslim Turks, Ottoman Turks. When you look at that map also, you'll see that the Byzantine Empire is not as large as the maps that we saw. Well, you guys probably didn't look at the notes from yesterday, but I mean, last Thursday, but the Byzantine Empire is not as large as it once was. You know, it's kind of weak and smaller. So a couple of things, the influence of geography on economic, political, and social development. So the political unity of the first Muslim empire was very short-lived. During this time, the Arabic language spread with Islam and facilitated trade across Islamic lands. Arabic language also stimulated intellectual activity. Slavery existed and still exists in the Middle East today. When you saw the, I guess what you would say, the heyday of ISIS, okay, ISIS, you don't really hear about them that much. But I don't know if you remember back in the day, they were beheading people. And we were fighting against them. And ISIS is the Islamic State of Iraq and Syria. So we're fighting them in Iraq and in Syria. And, you know, they were instituting slavery on people. Slavery still exists. Human trafficking, all that stuff still exists today. Here you see what, you know, the Arabic language. When you see it on a piece of paper on a test, it kind of looks like a real fancy writing, calligraphy almost. So here we get to the Sunnis and Shias. It says there are two divisions of Islam today. Why are there two, and what are they? So the reason we have this, okay, is the belief of the successor of Muhammad. The two are Sunni and Shia. In one group, the Sunnis believe the successors should be chosen by the community. That's the why. Okay? Why do we have two divisions? Sunnis believe that successors to Muhammad should be chosen by the community. Sunnis make up about 90% of all Muslims. Now, when you look at Shiites, you're looking at Iran. Sunnis in Iraq and Iran fought a 12-year war in which Iraq used chemical weapons on the Iranian people. We supported Iraq, by the way. That's all right. Iran hates our guts. Iran doesn't really get along with anybody, though, so I guess it's not, they hate Israel. They want to blow Israel off the map. But the big difference here is they do not believe in an imam or a middleman between Allah and the people. Where Shiites are a little bit different. They believe that the leader has to be a descendant or relative of Muhammad. Someone who marries into the family or at least a blood relative. Whenever I think about Sunnis are more clean cut. They shave, where the Shiites are old school. They got the beards and the drab looking clothing. The other one is the Shiites here. Shiites are approximately 10%. They think Muhammad's successor should be his relatives. And they believed in a middleman called an imam, like a head guy that you go to that helps you along your spiritual path in Islam. They believe those with religious authority should rule the government too. That's why in Iran you have ayatollahs who basically are in charge of the country. They're the spiritual leaders and the political leaders, which makes Iran sort of a theocracy. Iran has a president, but he doesn't really wield the power. He's sort of like the spokesman almost. Historical turning points, the death of Ali. That's what caused the schism or the Sunni-Shia division. Muslim conquest of Jerusalem and Damascus during the Crusades. Muslims defeated at the Battle of Tours. It says at the bottom, your last question, where did Europeans defeat the Muslims? The Battle of Tours. This was when Charles the Hammer Martel of the Franks defeated the Muslims and stopped their spread. Europe would be a lot different if that battle had never occurred, because the Muslims would have went up through France, would have went up through many of the European countries, almost up into Germany. It would have been a whole different world if not for this one battle. Islamic capital was eventually moved to Baghdad. And eventually Baghdad will fall to the Mongols. Mongols build the world's largest empire.
Where am I supposed to write?
For
the last one.
Battle of Tours. Mm-hmm. All right. And there you see a lot of the spread of Islam into the modern day countries of Iran, Syria, Afghanistan. You got Pakistan is created down here. Pakistan was created to separate Indian Muslims from the Indian Hindus. They don't get along very well. Egypt, North Africa, and then here. The Franks actually win the Battle of Tours, which is right here. I know that's hard to kind of see on that, but right there, which stopped the spread of Islam into Europe. So what are the Muslims known for? Cultural, architectural achievements. One of their main buildings is located in Jerusalem. Jerusalem is the third most important city to Muslims because of this one building, which is the Dome of the Rock. They believe Muhammad died here and ascended to heaven. Now, Israel is in control of the holy city of Jerusalem, and they're not real keen on Muslims in general heading in there and checking things out because most of the Muslim countries hate Israel. Israel was created after World War II for the people who are, the Jewish people to go back to their homeland. The people who were there were ousted, the Palestinians, and there's this conflict between Palestinians and, Israelis that still exists today because of this, the holy city of Jerusalem. They also created mosaics. Mosaics is big in their sort of, art world. Arabic alphabet, translation of ancient texts into Arabic. So Arabic becomes one of the predominant languages and writing styles in the Middle East. Universities, houses of learning like the House of Wisdom in Baghdad, many universities that help spread Islam as well. And then literature, 1001 Nights. So many of you have seen 1001 Nights stories like Sinbad or what's the one? Aladdin. All right, these all come from this 1001 Nights. And the story goes like this. There was a king who would marry a woman each night. In a lot of the Muslim countries and faith, Muslims believe in polygamy, means you can have more than one wife. Now, why you don't want more than one wife is beyond me. I don't get it, but whatever. It's bad enough having one. Anyway, 1001 Nights is basically, there was a king who was married. He would marry a woman, and then the next day he would have her executed. Right? So one of the women was like, I don't want to get executed, so I'm going to tell him a story, and then I'm not going to finish the story until the what? That's right. So if he executed him in the morning, she's like, I'm not going to tell him the rest of the story till the next night. And so it really worked. And eventually she told him 1001 stories, and he actually spared her life, and that became his wife. Okay, so that's where the story of 1001 Nights comes from. This king who, basically didn't kill his wife because she kept telling him stories. So 1001 Nights, you do see a lot of this in Disney stuff, Aladdin and stuff like that. This is the Dome of the Rock, beautiful architecture. Don't get it confused with the Hagia Sophia. Hagia Sophia is much larger, and it has the minarets on the side. Please note too the sort of Arabic writing and the the mosaics that kind of circle this building are a little bit different. And there you see some of the mosaic, Arabic. This is the inside of the Dome of the Rock. I find it interesting. They still use Greek column. That's a Greek column. That's a Corinthian column in the middle here. But this is where Muhammad died and is believed to have ascended to heaven. There you have universities. Things that come from Muslims that you don't know. So I used to find, every once in a while, Facebook is funny because people get upset about the silliest things. So a lot of people believe when you teach kids about Islam that somehow Mr. A is in here brainwashing you to become a Muslim. I'm not a Muslim. I doubt anybody in here is ever going to become a Muslim. And people are like, they're teaching our kids how Islam. Well, we also teach you Christianity, Judaism, Hindu, all of the major religions. But anyway, if you really want to make people mad, you just tell them that the numbers that you use every day come from Muslims. Arabic numerals, what if you look at it, what it was, what it is today, our numbers are derivatives of the old Muslim numbers, Arabic numerals, and including the number 0. Algebra comes from Islam, Muslims. Algebra is actually named after a Muslim man, Al-Jabra. Okay, and algebra is the worst in the world. I don't like it at all, but it you know, if you want, you know, go tell your parents that you're learning Muslim math. You know, I mean, it really is. Muslims came up with algebra. They also made advancements in medicine. Some of the things they also did, they expanded geographic knowledge. A lot of times people would ask, you know, why can't people sail across the world back then? Well, they didn't have the technology, and the Astrolab actually helps them out because let's say you're sailing across the ocean. What's the big problem with that? Why in ancient times was that a horrible problem? Because once you get far away and you're in the middle of the ocean, you can't see what? Land. You know, and you're like looking around, you're kind of like, which way is north, which way? There was no compass. That comes from the Chinese later. But this Astrolab is actually going to help them navigate by using the stars when there is no land for them to look at. And there you see just some pictures of things that you would associate with Islam: algebra, Arabic numerals, the Kaaba, prayer, you know, 5 times a day, universities, mosaics. All right, so how many people looked at my notes from the last time and got the answers? To what? To the Byzantine Empire. All right, so let's look real quick because this is what I want you to do because a lot of people didn't do it. All right, I got the inbox here. Let's go to the dashboard. All right. Look at Byzantine classwork. How many of you actually did this? Raise your hand if you did. No one did. All right, so what you're going to do is go back. Do y'all have earbuds?
Is it a quiz?
It's not a quiz. It's the work like what we just, it's just like this. But I give you the answers, and you're supposed to look each day. Okay, so here is the Zoom class. Why don't that ever work? YouTube refuses to connect. How come this doesn't work? There you go. All right, so you go. So there's the class. You need to go to that class and get the answers that I give on that class to that assignment. That's what you should be working on. Don't play it all loud. I don't like you myself. If you've completed everything and you look at these notes, you can go ahead and take the quiz for today, which is the Byzantine Empire quiz. You don't have to take it today. You can take it tomorrow. After we're going to do a Byzantine Islam review for the test. So you do it after that. But you need to do this so that you get the grade for it. Because these are the problems we're having. You guys are not coming in and doing the work from the previous days. I know you're not here, but you still have to know that each day is different. You click on the top of that if it doesn't open it right up. And it should open up into, it should take you out of it and put you into the other one.
Week 12.
It is week 11, and it's Thursday. Byzantine Empire notes and the Byzantine Empire classwork. You can use either one to answer those, but I give you the answer on the Zoom class. All right, I'm done with the Zoom class today. Charity and Vanessa, do you guys have any questions?
No.
All right, well, y'all have a good day.